There are two fundamental types of loops in Python. There's while loops and for loops. And let's start by looking at the while loop. So we'll take our while loop.py and make a little copy of it and call it while loop working. Go ahead and open that. And you'll see this is a simple Fibonacci series. It's a common exercise for while loops. So here we are assigning two values to A and B, 0 and 1. The 0 will get assigned to A and the 1 will get assigned to B. And we say while B is less than 50, and we go ahead and do things that will make B grow in a Fibonacci series. And we print it each time using the print function. And so if I go ahead and run this and select the Python run, you'll see here we get the Fibonacci series. So while loops just work like that. They say while, and then there's a condition, and as long as this condition is true, the while loop will continue to execute. And as soon as this condition becomes not true, then the while loop will end and execution will continue after it if there's any code after it, which in this case we don't have. Down here I could say print done, and if I save that and run it, you'll see we get done at the end. You'll notice that the print done is not indented. If I were to indent it here, then it would become part of the loop. But by having it back here at the same indentation level as the while statement itself, then it is no longer part of this suite of code that is controlled by the while loop. So that's how while loops work. Let's take a look at for loops. Go ahead and make a copy of forloop.py, and I'll name it for loop working. And we'll open that. What a for loop does is it works with what's called an iterator. An iterator is an object that each time you call it, it gives you the next value. So in this case, we open a file, and it's this lines.txt, which we can see right here. It just has 5 lines of text. Then for line in fh, that's the file handle, which is actually an object, and it has this method readlines, which is an iterator. And so for each time this fh.readlines is called, it will put the next value in the line variable, which will be the next line of text, and then we'll print it. So when I run it, we get these lines of text. Now you'll notice that there's an extra line ending, an extra new line in each one of these. And that's because the print function puts a new line at the end, and each of these lines actually has a new line at the end of it. So we get 2 for each one. If you hover the mouse in Eclipse, you hover the mouse over the print function, you get a little bit of documentation for it. You'll notice that there's an end option, and it defaults to having this new line. So if I just say end equals an empty string like that, and I save it and run it, now we don't have that effect anymore. So the for loop works like this. It calls an iterator, and its values get put in this variable here. It has a colon, like all the control structures in Python, and the block of code underneath it is indented. And so for each line of read lines, it'll take the line, put it in the line variable, and then print it just like we see here. So that's how for loops work in Python, and those are the two types of loops that we'll see in Python. We have while loops, which are traditional conditional loops, and for loops, which work with iterators.